More drama has unfolded in the Red Sea as China and Russia have taken the unprecedented move to deploy their troops into the Red Sea. This joint decision has come off the back of a choice to support the Houthi rebels in their battle against the UK and the US. The Houthi rebels' attacks on shipments in the Red Sea rose fears of conflict and prompted the United States and the United Kingdom to launch military strikes in Yemen. This response from the UK and US came in the early hours of the morning. The rebels claimed that 5 people were killed and have now warned that the US and the UK's assets have now become targets for them. Following attacks on commercial ships, Joe Biden said these were unprecedented and threatened to take further actions if necessary. Regarding the air and sea raids, Biden stated, "These targeted strikes are a clear message that the United States and our partners will not tolerate attacks on our personnel or allow hostile actors to imperil freedom of navigation." According to U.S. Lieutenant General Douglas Sims, the director of the Joint Staff, the attacks used over 150 weapons and affected about 30 targets in Yemen late on Friday. Because folks in rural areas were among the targets, he did not anticipate a large number of casualties. However, he added that Washington anticipated a retaliatory effort from the Houthis. All American British interests have become legitimate targets for the Yemeni armed forces in response to their direct and declared aggression against the Republic of Yemen, the Houthis' Supreme Political Council threatened in a statement. The Houthis had already referred to the attacks on Yemen as barbaric, promised reprisal, and declared that they would keep attacking ships that were bound for Israel as long as Israel was engaged in a conflict over Gaza. The military spokesperson for the organization, Yehia Sari, declared, "The American and British enemy bears full responsibility for its criminal aggression against our Yemeni people, and it will not go unanswered and unpunished." However, the internationally recognized government of Yemen, backed by Saudi Arabia, accused the Houthis of being behind the US and UK strikes on the nation, claiming that the rebels' attacks in the Red Sea were what led Yemen into a military conflict. The US military is constantly monitoring the situation and has not yet observed any retaliation assaults from the Houthis, Pentagon spokesperson Pat Ryder told Al Jazeera. Tens of thousands of Yemenis convened in several locations throughout the nation on Friday to express their opposition to the US and UK strikes and to reiterate their support for the Palestinians in Gaza. Chief negotiator and spokesman for the Houthis, Mohammed Abdul Salam, said that the US and Britain had committed foolishness with this treacherous aggression. To understand this better, it is important to understand the Houthi rebels' motives behind attacking these ships. There are several reasons behind their motives, which we will now delve into. Strategic targeting. Given the strategic significance of the region's maritime commerce lines, the Houthi rebels regard commercial ships traveling through the Red Sea as acceptable targets. They hope to weaken the economies of nations that depend on these maritime routes by attacking commercial vessels in an effort to disrupt global trade and commerce. Pressure tactics. The Houthi rebels are using pressure tactics to further their military and political goals, and this is evident in their attacks on commercial ships. They aim to put pressure on regional and international entities to comply with their demands or to erode the determination of their enemies by showcasing their capabilities to disrupt marine traffic. Revenue generation. Monetary concerns may also be the driving force behind certain attacks against commercial ships. It is possible that the Houthi rebels would try to take precious cargo or shipowners' money as ransom for the release of their captive boats or crew members. The rebel organization may be able to raise money from these activities to support their operations and continue their struggle. Escalation of war. Attacks on commercial ships have the potential to intensify the Yemeni war and bring international attention to the Houthi cause. By launching attacks against ships belonging to warring nations or endorsing the coalition headed by Saudi Arabia, the rebels hope to show off their military prowess and readiness to take on their enemies on several fronts. Proxy warfare dynamics. The Houthi rebels in Yemen are supported by Iran, while Saudi Arabia is at the head of a coalition that backs the internationally recognized government. The conflict in Yemen is frequently seen through the prism of regional rivalries. The Houthis and other non-state players are employed in the region's proxy warfare to forward the objectives of foreign powers, and attacks against commercial ships are just one aspect of this larger dynamic. In general, a mix of political, economic, and strategic considerations drive the Houthi rebels' attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea. These activities jeopardize international shipping and diplomatic efforts to resolve the crisis, add to the ongoing war in Yemen, and have consequences for marine security in the area. It is also very important to understand Russia's and China's relationship with the Houthi rebels and their reasoning for backing them in the Red Sea. In contrast to other parties involved in the Yemeni crisis, China and Russia have maintained diplomatic ties with the Houthi rebels in Yemen, though their interactions and support have been less noticeable. An outline of the connections between China and Russia and the Houthi rebels is provided below. China has been involved in diplomatic efforts to address the war in Yemen by interacting with several sides, notably the Houthi rebels. China has voiced concern about the humanitarian situation in Yemen and formally favors a political solution to the crisis, but it has not played a significant role in resolving the conflict or giving the Houthi rebels direct support. China maintains a non-interference policy in other nations' domestic affairs, including Yemen's. China has said that talks and conversation should be used to find a peaceful end to the war, even though it still retains diplomatic ties with President Abdrabbuh Mansur Hadi's internationally recognized government of Yemen. China has sent aid to Yemen, including the regions under the rebels' control, including humanitarian aid. China has provided financial support, medical supplies, food, and other humanitarian help to Yemeni citizens impacted by the conflict in an effort to lessen their suffering. Russia's diplomatic efforts to address the Yemeni situation have included engagement with the Houthi rebels. Russia has urged for talks and engagement including all Yemeni groups, including the Houthis, and has condemned the participation of external actors, notably the coalition commanded by Saudi Arabia, even if it formally supports a political solution to the issue. It has been alleged that Russia has given the Houthi rebels some modest military support, such as small guns and ammunition. Despite Russia's denial of any direct military involvement in Yemen, reports indicate that the Houthi rebels may have used weapons manufactured in Russia. Russia has pushed for a political resolution to the Yemeni issue by using its influence in international fora, like the UN Security Council. Russia has denounced the sanctions and blockade on Yemen, which have made the humanitarian crisis worse, and demanded an end to the Saudi-led military involvement in the country. Generally, compared to other external actors involved in the Yemeni crisis, China and Russia's engagements and backing with the Houthi rebels have been relatively restricted, despite the fact that they maintain diplomatic connections and have engaged with them to some level. China and Russia have also stressed the need for a diplomatic resolution to the issue and demanded a stop to outside meddling and military incursions into Yemen. As perceived by the U.S. as Iran's regional proxies and destabilizing forces, the U.S. opposes the Houthi rebels and their activities in Yemen. The U.S. has denounced the Houthi group's use of drones and ballistic missiles to attack Saudi Arabia and other nations in the area, as well as its attacks on people, humanitarian relief workers, and civilian infrastructure. The coalition led by Saudi Arabia is fighting the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and the U.S. is supporting them. This support encompasses logistical support for coalition operations, intelligence sharing, and military help. In addition, the U.S. has backed the coalition's attempts to impose a naval blockade on Yemen in an effort to stop the Houthi rebels from receiving armed supplies. The U.S. has voiced concerns about the worsening humanitarian situation in Yemen as a result of the fighting, even if it opposes the Houthi rebels. Through non-governmental and international organizations, the U.S. has significantly increased its humanitarian help to Yemen, offering food, medical supplies, and support for internally displaced people. But the U.S. has also come under fire for its involvement in the fight, especially in light of the civilian deaths brought on by coalition airstrikes and the blockade. In an attempt to address the Yemeni conflict and advance a political resolution to the issue, the U.S. has been actively engaged in diplomatic efforts. This includes backing peace negotiations mediated by the UN and initiatives to bring the warring parties together for talks. Nonetheless, there hasn't been much progress made in the direction of a long-lasting peace accord, since political impasse and continuous violence continue. In general, there is disagreement and conflict in the U.S. relationship with the Houthi rebels in Yemen, along with humanitarian concerns and diplomatic attempts to address the root causes of the problem. Along with attempting to lessen the suffering of the conflict's victims, the U.S. continues to support attempts to end the conflict through diplomatic talks and dialogue. In general, there is disagreement and conflict in the U.S. relationship with the Houthi rebels in Yemen, along with humanitarian concerns and diplomatic attempts to address the root causes of the problem. Along with attempting to lessen the suffering of the conflict's victims, the U.S. continues to support attempts to end the conflict through diplomatic talks and dialogue. Thank you for watching till the end. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure the notification bell is turned on so you never miss a video.